Hello, lovely students. I'm Chris from the English streaming team. Today we're gonna do an oral exam. Stay tuned. Hi guys, as I've mentioned before, today we're going to do 2 oral exams on the topics communication, and we're gonna jump right into it. The first exam is about communication, of course, and it's about the subtopic mass and media and communication. Maybe it's better to sit a bit right there that you can read it a little bit better. So the exam paper looks exactly as the exam paper looks at your oral exam. You know, you have your preparation time for the exam, and you know that you have to prepare several topics, which communication is one of it. And today we have the following situation. So we start off with an introduction. That's where the examiner asks the examinee several questions about their future plans, what they have done before they started doing the course for the Berufsreifeprüfung. Then we jump into the monologue, which is task 1. In this case, it's task 1, mass media and communication, which is a role-play monologue. So monologue does mean you speak and you are holding either a talk or presentation to a specific audience. In this case, you are supposed to be acting a communication manager at a big international company. You all know what a communication manager is and what he does. You should know. Just a quick reminder, of course, a communication manager in a big company has to think about several strategies how the company can communicate with their customers and build relations. And I think nowadays it's really easy with the help of social media. So you have been asked to hold a talk in front of your colleagues, the examiners, about the importance of mass media and communication nowadays. Pretty clear. Then your task, which is listed with bullet points, what mass media is. You should mention what mass media is, the role of mass media in business communication nowadays, and the advantage of these modern tools in business communication. So talk about briefly about those 3 bullet points. Make sure that you use the vocabulary that you studied for this exam. The next task is task 2, of course, which is about the role of social media marketing. Pretty interesting and very important topic nowadays, especially for companies. After your talk, you open up the discussion up to questions about the advantages and disadvantages of social media marketing in business. So be sure to maybe highlight this part to just be that you know what you really have to talk about. So, and use the information attached from use the information from the attached text, which is the importance of social media market. In this case, we're gonna post the links of these articles we're using today in the description below this video, so you can read them by yourself and do the exam maybe. And the last thing in the exam is, of course, the follow-up discussion. As always, in the follow-up discussion, you're not the communication manager anymore. You're the real person. You're, in my case, Chris. So, and the board, the examiner board, will ask you a few questions concerning the topic, the overall topic, communication. Yeah, so let's start with this exam. We are already.
Oh no.
Yeah, there we go. So, Karina, I'd like to welcome you to this exam.
Thank you very
to
much.
your A-levels, actually. But first, I want to know what drove you to do the A-levels and why are you here today?
Well, I am training as a tax accountant, and well, in my job, it is quite important to have some additional formation, some additional qualifications as well. And so I thought that the A-levels are a good opportunity because, yeah, whatever additional qualification I have, the better it looks in my CV and the more chances I have on the job market. So that's why I'm doing the A-levels, and I've done maths and German already, so this is going to be my last exam.
Your last exam.
My last exam, so
I think you will do good. So let's.
Really.
Should we jump into the first task, which is mass media and communication?
Okay, so I thought that I start from the start and try to talk about mass media in a kind of chronological way, if possible. So I think that the first big mass medium, or the first very popular one, was radio. I think that there was a time where most of the news and whatever was going on in the world was done over the radio. People were listening to the broadcasts over the radio, getting all the information that they had, sitting in front of their little radios at home. So for me, the radio is definitely the first mass medium kind of thing, followed by television, of course. I think that's the mass medium with the highest number of people that they can reach. Everyone has a TV set, and so nowadays everyone has a TV set. So I think it still counts as a mass medium that a lot of people use for information and fun and whatever. And I think that it was also a mass medium that developed very quickly. I think only few people had a TV set at home, but then it was kind of a prestigious thing to have one, and people were trying to have a TV set because it opened the world a little bit, I think. Newspapers are a mass medium as well, even though it's going down a little, I think. Nowadays, also because of the internet, I do think that the internet is to blame for the reduction of newspapers. I think, well, mentioned it already, nowadays internet is, I think, the mass medium. Everyone, or most people have, or a lot of people have access to the internet and use it for everything, for information, entertainment, staying in touch with people. So it's definitely the most, interactive mass medium that there is, I think, which is also good for business, because the more I can interact with the people I'm doing business with, the better. We can now, or companies, in my company, for example, we can send out stuff in real time, basically. So we have a conference, we have a meeting from all the staff in all the departments, and I can just write down what I hear send an attachment and everyone knows it, so everything happens in real time, more or less. The same also holds true for like the customers. We can give them information. They send us an email wanting to know something, and we reply hopefully within an hour something. So everything is just very, very interactive, and we can do it in real time kind of thing. And I think that's also the biggest advantage of the internet for business, because we can be so quick. We can quickly react to what our customers want to know. I guess the disadvantage is that they also, like, it's now so easy to compare other companies and ask for other offers and stuff, which makes it maybe a bit harder for the business. But the advantage is that you can send out stuff very quickly and inform your customers and say, well, hey, there's something new, and try that out. So I guess that has made business communication easier. I can't imagine what it was like when people still had to write letters back and forth. Like, so when you still had to ask for offers and price lists via mail and stuff. So I think that's a very good thing about that.
Okay, so thank you. That was quite good. And now we're gonna move on to the second task, and which is about the advantages and the disadvantages of social media marketing in business. So you've already touched upon this topic of social media a little bit. And what do you think could be a drawback for using social media as a company? Or is there any drawbacks, or are there any drawbacks? Or
I had to think about it in the preparation time quite carefully, because the only social media thing that I use is Facebook. I know about some others as well. I know, if I'm not wrong, that there is also advertisement and stuff on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure about that. But I think, for what people tell me, and I think that if we talk about marketing and advertising on social media, I think it's quite a lot. Like, I only have Facebook, and I see so many ads and so many products that I don't want to see. Like, I don't want any creams and stuff on my Facebook account. I don't care, but I still get it. So I guess that the drawback is that it's too much. As I said, I don't know what it looks like on Instagram and if I can block it or not. But still, it's there. So it's such a lot of input for the customer. And I think even if you want to ignore it, it's hard. Like, I don't look at it on Facebook, but I know that it's there. And I also kind of know what products are there. So for me as a customer, I think it's quite annoying. That's a drawback for me. For the companies, I think that, I think it is, if you, let's start from the other side, if you advertise stuff in, I don't know, a magazine or something, you only spend money on advertising in a magazine for a certain target group. Like, you don't waste any money. You know that the people who read your magazine are sort of interested in that kind of product. So I guess it's harder to on Facebook, because there's Facebook, for example, there's such a big age group, like 16-year-olds are using it and 60-year-olds are using it. So I think for a company, it's harder to find out where to advertise what, because there's such a big group. Yeah. And I think it's not so much on the point as it would be in newspapers and magazines, but that's pretty much all the drawbacks that I could find. I think there are more benefits, really.
So which benefits actually would you see as a company? I
think that especially companies, especially in like new companies nowadays, everyone is talking about startup businesses and stuff. Yeah. Social media is for free, so you can just advertise and you don't have to invest money. And can then, maybe when you're like more famous and stuff, you can then try to invest money in magazines and billboards, whatever other advertising media you have. But in the beginning you have advertising for free, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that's how it works on Facebook, that you just, kind of send out your ads, and you just have you have a big audience. Like, there's hardly any people who don't have any kind of social media. So you have a very, very big audience, I think, which is good.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think it's harder maybe on Facebook, I think it's quite hard to find the right target group, because everyone sees it basically. Probably different on Instagram, like it's more younger people kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So you would probably only find trendy companies and younger companies on Instagram. So they know where they have to put their ads. But in general, I think it's quite easy to reach a big audience, which is, I think, good. And what I also thought about was that you can, I don't know, in magazines it's different. If you have ads in magazines, you can have nice ads and they are visually very attractive. But sometimes in newspapers they are not. But on Instagram and stuff, you can make appealing. You can work with colors and images and moving images as well, which I think is good, because they're very visually attractive, I think.
More vivid, yes. Okay, so I think we got a really interesting view on social marketing and the importance of social media marketing, actually, because nowadays, as you've mentioned, companies can use the tools of Facebook, of Instagram and Snapchat and all that is out there for their benefits. And when they're starting, they don't have to pay anything. If they grow, of course, there are certain solutions that they can pay Facebook to place ads. But if you have a business and you start up, of course, you can do it for free, and which is great, because advertisement is a really big issue. Speaking of money,
that's true.
Yeah. So now we're doing the follow-up discussion. So back in the role as not in the role anymore, not back in the role, not in the role anymore. I want you to ask you. Do you think that that companies will in the future maybe place ads in messenger services like WhatsApp or something like this?
I could imagine that this is going to happen, because I think they're always trying to find something new and opening up new markets. As I said, I think Instagram and Snapchat might not work for everyone, or maybe Instagram for more people, but I think, or for me, or the people I know, Snapchat is more like a young teenager, young adults kind of thing. So they might open it up to messenger services as well. I hope they don't. I'm quite happy that there's no ads on, the Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or something, but I guess that people are always trying to find something new, find new ways of broaching the news about their products. I guess it could be.
Yeah.
But then I don't know enough about technology and stuff. I don't know if that's even possible, kind of thing. Probably is, but I hope not. I'm quite happy that at least on WhatsApp there's no pop-ups that I have to block and products that I see. But as a personal thing, I guess I'm not that much into technology really.
Exactly. So thank you for your interesting discussion and your monologue, and we will come back to you later.
Right.
Hopefully with a good result.
Looking forward to that.
Now we're gonna have a quick look at the exam. I already made some notes, but there are little spelling errors since I wrote it with this pen, which is not able to write accurately. But yes. So could you please
I'm going to go to where? Here.
This one, yes. So,
difficult thing.
All over, or basically to give you an overview, in this case the examinee did really well. She introduced herself probably, she explained what she's doing and what she wants to do. But that's basically just to kind of warm you up that you are ready for the exam situation, because of course you're a little bit nervous and you have to pass it, of course, or it would be quite cool to pass it. So in the first task, what I really liked was all of the bullet points were mentioned. She even gave detailed information, and what I really liked about the first bullet point was that she mentioned some of the history of mass media. So how did mass media develop? It's just not a thing that came by over the night, but of course we have newspapers, we have televisions, we have mobile phones, or other stuff that helps us to spread messages more in a faster way. So what I really liked that you mentioned, the TV development. So at first the television, the device television was just not affordable for everyone. So there was a development, a decrease in the usage of TVs. And of course then in the 90s the internet came by and mobile phones started to grow, and also the users of mobile phones started to grow. And she also talked about the newspaper reduction. So there's the discussion out there, does it even make sense to print newspapers nowadays? Of course, there's something different for you to think about, but it's really interesting too. So I really like that you touched upon this topic. And then move on to task 2. We really talked about, I think, every aspect of the social media marketing. Maybe we could have, or maybe she could have touched upon more about the marketing side, but I think it was quite interesting because there was also some personal reference. She mentioned that she only uses Facebook, no Instagram, but that Facebook is a helpful tool of course to make advertisement and to keep your company growing, especially if she mentioned startup companies that nowadays flourish in every city, I think, and even in the countryside. And it's a really helpful tool. Of course, nowadays there's Instagram and all the other social media services. Just be sure to integrate what you know. Not only integrate the information from the text, but also your own knowledge. You're also supposed to add in your own knowledge, which is always good because the examiner will love it. And of course, then in the follow-up discussion, is just to end the oral exam and to make sure that the examinee has fully understood the topics, normally the examiner board asks you more personal questions. What I've seen so far in the oral exams from the VFI, more personal questions. Yeah, but of course it depends on the situation and it depends on the examiner. But as I've mentioned, the overall exam was very good. And just to be sure, again, I've mentioned that we're posting the link in the description below, which brings us to the next exam, which is here. And this exam is about social networking. So I'm gonna activate this so we can look through it in this view. Of course, we have the introduction again, that always stays the same. Task 1 is also still the monologue, as always. In this case, we have a different situation, of course. In this case, it's that you are an independent social media expert. You have been asked to hold a presentation at a school in front of the school's pupils and teachers, which are the examiners, about the different types of communication nowadays. So your task now is to give a brief introductory talk to your audience about modern communication in general. You should talk about what today's communication looks like. You should talk about modern communication methods in comparison to more traditional communication forms. And the future of communication. So you can be creative, but you also should use the information that you got from your book, of course. And the second task is about social media, very important topic. We also touched upon this on the first exam, but now we're going into detail. So after your talk, you hold a discussion focusing on social media, its benefits and drawbacks. Use the information from the attached text, the positives and negatives of using social media networking sites, as well as your own ideas during the conversation. So, just to make sure, don't get confused with the first exam we did. The first exam was more focused more on the marketing side of social media, and now we have social media in general. So you can add in your own experience, your own knowledge, why you're using Facebook, and so on. And of course, then we have the follow-up discussion about the topic communication. And here's the link, which will be posted in the description. And now we're starting with the exam number 2.
Great. Yeah, back.
Perfect. So, Karina, I'd like to welcome you to your A-levels. Before we dive into our exam, I wanted to ask you what or why did you decide to do the A-levels, and what are your future plans?
Well, so at the moment I work in a library, and I want to study library sciences because, well, I like books a lot and I like reading a lot, and yes, I need the A-levels for university because I think that's the best way to get it, even though there are alternatives as well, but I think the A-levels are worth it, and you learn a lot, and so that's why I'm here.
Okay, so you want to study in Innsbruck?
Probably, yes. Maybe I go to Vienna, but I haven't decided yet. I thought I decide when I know if I passed all the exams and if I can, go.
Great.
So that's the plan.
So we're starting. We're going to start with the first task, which is about communication nowadays.
Modern communication, yes.
Yes.
Well, I thought that modern communication has changed a lot, also since in my lifetime kind of thing. So when I was younger, we communicated differently. I think that modern communication is very much characterized by writing instead of talking, kind of thing. Even though the text messages we write, I think they more look like speaking. People don't care about dialects and proper spelling and stuff, but I think we communicate very much in a non-personal way. Telephone calls are more personal, but there are days where I hardly receive any phone calls, and everything I do is via texting or WhatsApp or whatever. So I think today's communication has lost a little bit of the interactive part, I think. So, as I said, I think there are a lot of people who don't do many phone calls in the week unless they have to, because they work somewhere where they need to. But in my job, I don't need to make many phone calls, so there's always long times where I don't speak to people on the phone, because I would rather text or send WhatsApp Facebook Messenger messages or whatever. So I think the personal thing has gone down a little bit in communication. Of course, we also don't write letters that much anymore, if we consider that communication. But I guess,
it's a means of communication.
So that has changed. I know a lot of people who have never written a letter in their entire lives, so that's what has changed as well. And I think that's also, as I already started with the more traditional media, I think that nowadays we can do a lot more with our communication. We can, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but we can add remarks to what we say. We can add emojis and smileys and stuff. We can also send pictures. I don't have to tell people where I am. I just snap a picture, send it, and be like, okay guys, so now everyone knows where I am. Whereas in the past, nobody knew unless they phoned me the day before and got me on the landline phone and were like, so what are you doing tomorrow? So I think one thing that has changed a lot is that we know so much about other people by the modern means of communication, like the mobile phone and all the social media accounts. Whether or not this is always positive, I don't know. But yeah, everything has become more direct, more immediate, more visual as well. I can also only send a picture if I want, and everyone knows where I am. If I send it to people who share the same environment with me, kind of thing. I think that the interaction has gone down a lot. I think in the past, the telephone was a means of communication where you didn't see people, but you heard them and you had to respond to them and to react to them. Nowadays, sending text messages gives us time. We can think about what we write. We can polish the text messages so that they are exactly what we want to say. So we don't have this embarrassing moments of silence on the telephone where nobody knows what to say. So we maybe think a bit more about what we say and how we say it, and if we stylize it a lot, I think, which was not the case on the phone. We just said something, and if it was wrong, it was out, and so I think, and the future of communication is hard because I can't really imagine that things get any more modern than it already is. We can already talk to people via FaceTime and see them regardless of where they are. I can talk to my friends in India via FaceTime if I want to, and I see them and they are there in real time and see me and see my surroundings. And so I always thought that being able to have phone calls and look at the people kind of was the top. But then I read an article where people are working on software that put thoughts to text. I don't know if that already or something like that already exists. Obviously exists with the voice, like you can dictate what you want to write, but they're working on something that kind of reads your thoughts and puts it into communication and just sends it away, which I find a bit, I don't know, scary. But yeah, so I don't know. For me, I thought we have reached the limit and I can't really think about what the future will look like. Probably becomes even less personal. At least nowadays some people insist on talking to people on the phone, but I think that's going down gradually and will maybe eventually disappear. Maybe not that soon, but some stage. Yeah. I think.
Okay. Very interesting, actually. Very interesting first part of the exam. As we've talked about in the introduction or in the first thing when we went through the exam, we're now going to do the task 2, which is about social media and the article, the positives and negatives of using social networking sites. So, social media, we had it actually before, but social media, when it first was developed or when it first became more popular, even in Austria, Facebook was at first, of course, it was a hype, then it became a trend. And what do you think, since I think that you're personally using Facebook, what do you think are the Facebook or the general drawbacks and benefits of social media? Not only Facebook, but of course, if you're just using one tool, then it's okay.
I think so. For me, as you said, it was a hype in the beginning, and it was jumping the bandwagon thing. I got Facebook pretty, in the hype time pretty soon when it was out. And for me, the biggest benefit always was that I can stay in touch with people, because I used to work in other countries. I worked in Italy and I worked in Switzerland for a while. And you always say people, or when you talk to people, it's always like, okay, we're going to stay in touch, but nobody sends you a postcard. Nobody sends you a letter. So, and hardly anyone sends an email, like people maybe would if there wasn't the chance to communicate via Facebook. But then Facebook is a nicer way, and you stay up to date and you know what people are doing, and you can add all these personal informations that you couldn't add in an email, not necessarily. So I think that's, for me, the biggest benefit. I know, like I had people working with me from Sweden, and I know what they are doing now, even though we are not in touch anymore, but they post a lot of pictures as well, and I know that Sweden is a very beautiful country and that I want to go there. So I think that's the big advantage for me personally, and for many other people as well, I guess. What I think is a drawback is that people are very careless about what they post. Maybe not so much on Facebook anymore, because I think the reputation about how they deal with people's data has kind of made people a bit more careful. But I know I know a lot of younger people as well, and I think what they sometimes post on Snapchat and stuff like that is maybe very open. They show more than they should really, which can be dangerous, I think, in a time where the looks and stuff are so important, and maybe there's someone out there who holds it against you what you posted on a personal level. So I think people offer a lot of they give other people the opportunity to say something bad about them and bully them, kind of thing. So I think the people always want to show a lot of them. Obviously, there's a trait that we have, but sometimes it goes in the wrong direction. So yeah.
Speaking of this topic about people sharing stuff and being concerned how they look on the pictures. Do you think that social media in general, especially maybe more like Instagram today, but of course it works just with pictures, Instagram. Do you think that certain people that are popular on Instagram shape the way we think about our bodies or how we should let's talk about the stereotypes or creating stereotypes. Do you think that it influences people?
I think a couple of years ago there was the same discussion with all those beauty shows on television. Like, do they give the wrong picture? But then I think it depends very much on the person. I think that there are a lot of people who know that this is like a filter, that this is like a modified, photoshopped picture, and that the whole thing is fake. I think most people know that really, but then I think those pictures work on a part in your brain. If you have like, I don't know, if you're feeling bad at the moment and have some self-esteem problems, maybe not even permanent ones, but just at the moment because something happened, and then you see pictures and you know that you're probably not gonna look like those people. I think that can have an effect. I just don't know how much. I personally, I don't know, I think I'm too realistic and I know that most of it is fake, but I can totally see that there are people who get kind of influenced, especially when they have like a bad time and for some reasons feel bad anyway, and then they see super perfect pictures. I guess that can have an effect on especially very young people. And then I think, like, I know what's going on Instagram, even though I don't have it. And those people who are famous on Instagram, they put a lot of effort into it and they post perfect pictures and really highly artistic stuff. And I guess that, you know, if you then have to realize that it's probably not reality, I think that can be quite hard. And that it's a reality that you can't live up to really in the normal cases. So like, they seem to be so perfect boyfriends and perfect holiday destinations and perfect gym sessions and everything. So I guess that's can be quite hard.
Yeah, so I'd like to thank you for the first 2 parts of the exam. Now the examiner board is going to ask you some questions. In this case, I'm the examiner board because we don't have any people here. But I'd like to touch upon the topic of privacy with Facebook. Do you think that there should be more regulations from the EU that forces Facebook to minimize the personal information they can get from you? Or do you think it doesn't matter anyway because you're on the internet, it's a whole different space?
I think that it's first of all, to start with your first part of the question, I do think that there should be regulations, and I don't think that phone numbers and stuff and emails should be made public to anyone. Like, there should be no lists of them. Facebook shouldn't even have them, like, which is not realistic, but of course they collect everything, but they shouldn't really, and they should not give it to anyone. But then I think it is nowadays, you get asked for personal details everywhere, and if Facebook can collect them, or if, you know, everyone can, so I guess the data is out there anyway, and if you get super paranoid about it, and, you know, that doesn't really help because it's out there anyway. And so I think it's very hard. I think there should be regulations. I think there should be more regulations on social media in general, be it for age and what people are allowed to publish and what you get asked for when you register and stuff. But then I guess it's hard, and as you said, the information is out there anyway. You can't even order anything via Amazon without giving details from you away. So I think the damage is done probably. So I think it's hard. I would be in favor of regulations of different sorts. The same with the age thing, but how can you regulate the age? So I just make myself 18 if I'm only 14, end of story.
Yes.
So that's, I think it's out there and it's very hard to control, and I think, and maybe I also don't know enough about the mechanisms behind it, but
I think it's really complex, but thank you anyway for your constructive constructive information you had on this topic. So what I really liked about task 1, we don't have to talk about the introduction anymore, I think, is that, so those are the first bullet point, what today's communication looks like. I really liked about that you touched upon the topic that we can communicate with almost everything we have. We have FaceTime, which is communication via video, so audio visual. Basically, you can use those tools nowadays with Facebook, with WhatsApp, and Skype, of course. That's how it started off with Skype, I think. And I really like that she touched upon the interactive aspect of these means of communication. And then with modern communication methods in comparison to traditional communication forms, I think that was nothing that's worth to mention, because there were no things that I could add personally and no negative aspects. The same goes with the future of communication. Of course, it is really hard to predict where we're going, but what I really liked about that, she put in some personal information she got from an article, she read about the topic, informed herself on the internet, so she was able to even add in on this topic, on this bullet point. In this case, on writing thoughts to your persons, not writing thoughts to your beloved girlfriend or your family. So, which is quite dangerous, I think, but it's another topic to touch upon. It does matter how you're thinking about your family, and and then in the second discussion, positive and negatives of social media networking sites, was more like a general talk about the use of Facebook and the dangers that come with it. And I really liked the topics we talked about. It was a really easy atmosphere. She didn't make the impression that she did not know that much about the topic. So it's always good if you know a lot about it, a lot about the topic, and then you have the additional article, so you can throw it all together and just show off with your knowledge. So great again here with task 2. And of course, follow-up discussion, personal question in this case. It was about the privacy policy of Facebook, which is an ongoing topic, of course. The EU wants to regulate, and Facebook, they have certain regulations that not everyone is happy with. So, of course, you always have to be careful with it, but that's how our oral exams and your oral exams will look like. And if you consider the things I've mentioned, then it will work out just fine. Of course, you have to study by your own, but if you have any questions, just let us know via our group chat for this video. Yeah, the links will be posted below the video, and we will see each other on Monday, I guess. So I'm streaming on Monday. There's of course also stream on Wednesday with Karina. Yes?
I think so.
The examinee. Today's examinee.
I got promoted so quickly.
And yeah, just enjoy your evening. It's already 10 o'clock, so go home.
Go to bed.
Go to bed, sleepy, and prepare for the oral exam. Bye-bye. Müssen wir da zuerst stoppen?